Right. Welcome everybody as you're joining. I'm going to give it a few minutes for attendees to pop in before we get started. Everybody is getting settled into our Zoom room here. We'll give it another couple seconds. All right, great. Let's go ahead and get started. It is that time, 11 a.m. here in Memphis. So good morning, everybody. My name is Rebecca Smetana. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions and Student Services here at SCO, and I'd like to welcome you to our November webinar, which is a Why SCO Student Panel. I think it's a great topic. It's going to be a lot of fun, and mostly because you're going to get the chance to not hear from me, you'll get the chance to hear from several of our current students. So I'm excited for it. Hopefully you all are as well. And we just want to thank you for joining us for this live session. Before we jump into it, I just want to ask that we all use proper Zoom etiquette today. If you would please keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking. If you could limit your background noise interference and just make sure to respect all of the webinar's attendees and facilitators. We'll have a great time. We'll have a great session. We will have some dedicated time at the end for questions, but I will also, as the moderator, be keeping an eye on the chat and on the Q&A. So if there's something that you want us to address, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on that. We do, of course, look forward to your questions and want this to be an engaging session. So let's go ahead and dive in. I want to show you our great speaker team today. We have several members of our class of 2026. These are students who are part of our ambassador team, and they'll be the ones discussing their journey, not only to the optometric profession, but to optometry school and to SCO as well. They'll talk about their application experience, their experience navigating the interview day, and ultimately why they chose to attend school here at SCO. One last reminder is that we are recording this webinar. So if you are choosing to use your microphone to speak or what have you, this is something that will be recorded. So you're agreeing to be recorded and to that end. And we will be posting this on our YouTube page, and that will be hopefully up and available for viewing starting tomorrow. Our YouTube page has recordings of all of our webinars from the last many, many months and years even. So it's a really great resource to take a look at for all sorts of admissions related topics. All right, so I am going to do a little less talking starting now, and I would like to give an opportunity to our panelists, our student ambassadors, to say hello. And so really briefly, before we jump into some of the questions, I would like each of our ambassadors to please just say hello and give a quick intro, where you're from, what is your alma mater, and what your major was in school. So I will call on our panelists. Let's start with Alexandra.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Allen. I'm from New Canaan, Connecticut, so a good way from Memphis. And I went to Duke University and I majored in biology.
Thank you. How about Jacob?
How's it going? My name is Jacob Bellis. I'm from a small rural town in Wyoming called Sheridan. I went to the University of Wyoming and my major was in physiology.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. Morgan?
Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm from Amarillo, Texas. I went to the University of Oklahoma for undergrad and I majored in biomedical engineering.
Great. Last but not least, Raphael.
Hey everybody, I'm Raphael. I am from Sangaree, California. It's a small town by California standards. and I went to Boise State University for my undergrad. I majored in biology.
Awesome, thank you. So we have a good mix here for y'all today, and let's go ahead and dive right into the questions. So we did give a series of questions to our ambassadors to take a look at in advance so that they could be prepared to speak to the different elements we're going to be focusing on today. So again, the journey toward optometry school, what the application experience is, and ultimately why our ambassadors chose SCO. So we're going to start with the journey to optometry school, and Raphael and Alexandra have been prepared to speak to these questions that you see here. So how were you exposed to optometry? When did you start researching schools? How did you gain exposure through shadowing or working in the field? And were you involved in pre-optometry or pre-health clubs? Raphael, your face is still up on the screen. Do you want to go ahead and go first?
Sure, let's do it. Okay, so my exposure to optometry was actually pretty early on. I wore glasses since kindergarten. So I was rocking those, 5 years old. And I guess I graduated to contacts. So when I was in 7th grade, I went back to the optometrist. I mean, obviously I went back annually. But I kept going back for more, right? Contacts eventually. And then I actually went and got gas permeable lenses because I had a high astigmatism, and so just going to see the optometrist so many times for different reasons definitely piqued my interest prior to even considering the profession. So I actually had a buddy when I was an undergrad who was an optometrist, and he let me shadow him a few times. That definitely solidified the desire to want to pursue a career in optometry. And he kind of gave me some pointers. He said to talk to your counselor and see what the prerequisites are, and you could also go online and find those out for yourself, because some schools might differ from one another, but for the most part they were the same. And with that, I kind of laid out my coursework and completed all that, trying to get ready for the application process. I think the best piece of advice that was given to me when I was applying, though, was the early bird gets the worm, or in other words, applying sooner the better. For me, for my case, I felt like I was pretty average, run of the mill, and I was a little nervous about maybe not getting accepted. So I applied to quite a bit of schools early on in the process, and even with me being pretty average, I got accepted to most of the schools. So I would say if you're having those thoughts to apply early, schools at that time were trying to fill seats, and more than likely they'll give you a seat. But let's see, what are the other questions here? Did I participate in any pre-optometry, pre-health clubs? No, I did. I was in a pre-health club, but my undergrad did not have one. I guess I could have tried starting one, but that wasn't something that I felt like I could do at the time. Let's see, am I forgetting anything? I don't think so, but if I think of anything else, I'll definitely chime in.
All right, thanks, Raphael. For the record, I don't think you're average. We think you're exceptional. So we'll toss it over to Alexandra.
Yeah, so similar to what Raphael said, I was exposed pretty young. I got my first pair of glasses when I was like 7 or 8, which I feel like is typical for some of our classmates, and like quickly graduated to contacts. But my uncle is an optometrist. He's got a practice in New York City, so pretty close to where I live. So I kind of grew up going to his office, and he was always very good about like explaining everything to me, even when I was a kid. And he did research at his practice as well. So he would always like fill me in on the new things going on with that. And so it always was just in the back of my mind. I always liked math and science. And I did think about medical school, but the more I pursued like shadowing that, I realized the eye is what's interesting to me, and that's really the part of the body that I'm interested in, and that's what I want to do. So it was at the forefront when I was in high school and everything. And I did shadow and like work a little bit at my uncle's office at the end of high school, early college. And then COVID obviously happened my sophomore year. So it was a little bit hard to shadow at that point. So I did a lot of like informational interviews with people at my university who work. There's an eye center at Duke. So I talked to various doctors there and just people that my uncle connected me with that he worked with and stuff, just to like get a better understanding of what I would be getting into if I applied to optometry school. We did not have a pre-optometry club at my school, but there was like a very strong pre-med like advising program, and I kind of just like made my advisor an optometry advisor. And yeah, I think mostly my junior and senior year, once things started to open up after COVID, I got to shadow more, especially during the summers back in Connecticut and New York. I just reached out to like optometrists in my town or nearby. And that was a really great way to gain experience. And yeah, I think I hit everything.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Alexandra. All right, we'll shift and we'll go to the next slide. And this section is going to be more about the application experience, and Jacob and Morgan have been asked to speak to these questions. So when did you complete your application in relation to the application deadline? What was your OAT prep test taking experience like? Did you experience any frustrations or roadblocks during the application process? And what was the SCO interview experience like for you? So some jam-packed questions, but I think some really good ones. Jacob, would you like to take the first stab at it?
Yeah, sure. So I completed my just to answer the first question, I cleared my application kind of like Raphael said, pretty early in the cycle. I started it right after the cycle opens, which is usually the end of June, if I remember, like right the 1st of July. But I was getting married the first week of August, and so that was like a nice little important part of my life that I had to put a lot of emphasis in. And so I ended up not getting my application turned in until like literally on my honeymoon. When we were there, I like opened up my laptop and submitted it. So I ended up submitting the first week of August, and then was interviewing by September. And so I was pretty early in the application cycle, like Raphael. When it came to preparing for the OAT, I used some of those programs that you can find. I used Kaplan, which was nice. They gave you a bunch of like, I don't know, test booklets and free, mock test practice tests that you could take that I participated in, which I felt like prepped me pretty well. I did listen to some people who told me, to take the OAT after you take OChem, which is what I did because I didn't want to have to relearn OChem all over again because it's OChem. And I probably took it a little early if I look back now. Like I hadn't taken quite as many like physiology and biology classes, so those units of the test might have struggled more than my chemistry parts of it did. But I don't know. I liked using Kaplan. I thought Kaplan prepped you well. And I know people that didn't use Kaplan used other programs or just kind of, just sent it and they did well. When it came to the application process, I didn't really have too many roadblocks, especially with SCO. There were a couple of other schools that I applied to that required like other essays. And that straight up is the reason why I ended up submitting on my honeymoon, because I couldn't finish them in time because I was planning for my wedding. And so like other than those like little, extra essays or extra weird little bits to applications that other schools required, I didn't really have too many roadblocks. SCO was super like fluid and easy moving, and they reached out to you really well. They were easy to communicate, which I experienced the entire time. Like even prior to interviewing there, like when I was reach out to schools for information, like these webinars, SCO was one of the few schools that actually reached out to me and like got back to me, which kind of gave me, you know, like put them up in my mind as like one of the better schools. And then when I ended up coming into interview, it just kind of affirmed that. Like SCO was my first school I interviewed at. I interviewed at 3 schools. SCO was the first one. And just like the first day, like being there, like Memphis is a cool town, but when I actually got to the school, like everyone here is so stinking nice. Like I'm from Wyoming, and I mean, everyone up there is really nice as well. But like I didn't really know what Southern hospitality was, and then I moved down here. Like even when you open the door, like they open the door for you, and you go in, and the security guards are all asking how you are. I remember the crossing guards were out helping people across the street, and they were all saying hi to me, and everyone was super nice. They let me bring my, at the time, like 2-month white, like my wife that I've been married to for 2 months, and they were super nice to her as well. Um, and the application was super, like the interview was nice. It felt more like a conversation than anything else. And I don't know, I really enjoyed my interview experience the day there. So those are my answers to those questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. Morgan?
Okay. So unlike Jacob, I was not getting married, but I submitted mine a little bit later as well. But I would recommend doing it earlier. I think I submitted my application, I want to say beginning of September, but I think the earlier the better. I think just there's more interview spots available. So if I could go back, I think I would change. I would just submit, early July if I could. But just filling out that early application is really important in securing a spot in the class. But I would say my OAT test taking prep, it was kind of similar to Jacob. I can't remember the name of the books that I used, but it was similar to like the Kaplan workbooks where you just, work problems out and kind of read over, the basic categories on the OAT. Nothing too crazy, but I heard of people using like different resources and stuff, and they were pretty successful on their OAT as well. I would say I didn't experience any frustrations or roadblocks with SCO. Kind of like, again, like Jacob was saying, like I think SCO was one of the first schools to reach out about my application and confirming that they got all of the documents that they needed from me. And we're one of the first schools to try to set up an interview. So I think that also really influenced why I chose SCO at the end of the day. I appreciated them reaching out and saying, thank you for the application, and here are these dates that we have. Let's try to work around your schedule to get you in for an interview. So I really appreciated that. In some schools, it took a little bit longer for them to reach out. And then the SEO interview process, for me, I was the exact opposite of Jacob. SEO was my last interview, and I thought I was going to go to another school. But my mom and I flew into Memphis, and she was like, let's just give SEO a shot and just give it a try, see Memphis, hang out. And they were super kind to me and my mom, and we just ended up really liking the people here in Memphis and at Southern College of Optometry. And I think that's really what influenced me to come here. Is I felt like faculty and staff really want us to succeed, and they really care about us personally, and I just didn't really feel that at any other school, and so I just felt like this is where I belong. So, yeah.
Thank you for that feedback, Morgan. All right, we are going to move forward. And this next section is why you chose SCO. So what was it about SCO that made the greatest impact on you? If you were able to visit the campus prior to applying or enrolling, what was that experience like? And if you were on the fence, what ultimately made you choose SCO? Raphael, if you'd like to give this section a go.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Morgan and Jacob said, I mean, my whole time at SEO for the first time was like they had rolled out the red carpet for me, and it was just an amazing experience. I'm also married, and I brought my wife with me, and everybody was just so nice to us. It was weird. It felt like they knew me better than I knew myself in a sense, because they would be bringing out, I guess not bringing out, students came to visit me who were, I guess, in the similar walks of life. So students that were married with children, telling me like where to go to eat after I'm done with the interview, giving me all these recommendations. And so one of the biggest impacts that SCO had on me was just the hospitality that I felt when I went to visit. And also, and it wasn't just from like the people that worked there, it was the students that were there that didn't even know me yet. And that's definitely something that's carried on out throughout my time here at SCO. And I did get to visit the school, so that was another big part. When I was interviewing, in the interviewing process, there was I guess half of the schools that I had applied to were still, I guess maybe because it was still COVID, but it was just a virtual interview. So that kind of made it harder to decide if I wanted to go or not. But of the schools that I visited, SCO was my favorite. And it technically was on the fence. I guess for me, in my case, I was kind of like Morgan, where SCO was at the tail end of my interviewing process. My wife and I had visited a different school prior, and we were really, wanting to apply to that one, but we were like, no, we have SCO left. Like, let's go visit that school and see what's going on there. We came to visit, and I mean, there was a number of things that made us decide SCO over the other schools. I mean, cost of living is low. It compared to other cities. I'm from California, so cost of living is way low, way lower in Memphis than where I was at. So that was a big plus for us. Something that I hadn't really thought about then, but I do think about now, is also the patient base that we get here in Memphis compared to, I don't know, other places like California or Oregon, or places where people are usually relatively healthy. I feel like we get, I mean, we get healthy people here too, but we also get to see a lot of disease, things that we wouldn't usually see if we were at, in the suburbs somewhere, or a more rural area where not a lot of people are living. And so that's something that I am grateful for, being here in Memphis, is looking forward to the exposure that I'm going to get while I'm in clinic. We've only touched the surface there, being in second year, but I'm excited for what's to come. And I guess those are the reasons why I decided to go with SCO in the end.
Okay, great. And Morgan, you commented on this in the last section, but is there anything you would add about what made the greatest impact on you in regards to your SCO interview experience, and ultimately what made you choose the school? Did you visit, etc.?
Yeah, so kind of, I think we kind of all feel the same way about SEO. I think just from the beginning of the application process, I'm pretty sure once you select SEO on the Optomcast, there's an email sent. And just like as an applicant, it makes you feel like you're not just a number, like SEO is interested in you. And just, I was just really impressed with how on top of everything SEO was, with the application process and the interview process. And I was able to visit campus when I interviewed. And I was, one of the COVID years as well. So it was really nice to get to experience the full SEO vibe, because I did a couple of interviews virtually, and it was just hard to get a feel for what the students are like, and just what faculty was like and how life was. So it was nice to be able to visit and get a feel for what optometry school would really be like. And I think being on the fence, what made me choose SEO was just kind of like Raphael and Jacob were saying, like SEO, I felt like they were invested in me as a person, not just as like a student in a potential spot. They really wanted to know more about me personally and to make sure that this was the right fit. And so it just felt right, and I made ultimately the correct decision. So yeah.
All right, thanks guys. It's great to hear that feedback. We have a couple
Could
more.
I chime in, Rebecca? One more.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. And it just popped up, but one of the other things that that made me decide SEO was the scholarship. So I think one thing that I hadn't known before was, I guess with SCO, you don't have to apply for a scholarship. They kind of just, call you and say like, hey, you qualified for this scholarship, or we're going to give you this scholarship. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the stats are like 80 or 90 out of the 130 students receive a scholarship, either based off of, academic standing or merits. And so for me, that was kind of surprising. I was like, I didn't apply for anything. Like, how did I get the scholarship? So, and even till this day, I'm still not really sure, but I'm glad I have it. And that was just one of the other the pluses that I got from SCO. One of the things that made me choose to go with them.
Thanks for adding that, Raphael. Yes, we do give away around 80 to 90 scholarships to incoming students. So you're right on the money with that, I guess. And you're right too, that everybody who goes through the admissions process is automatically considered for a scholarship. So there's no separate application process. And I guess it's a positive thing if you were pleasantly surprised, Raphael, by your award of that scholarship. Okay, so we have a couple more sections here for our wonderful panelists to respond to. One is going to be about looking back. These questions are in regards to the transition to optometry school and what are the differences between undergraduate and professional studies, and how does the experience meet your expectations? The next slide will be about life as an SCO student. So we'll start with Jacob and Alexander for this section here about looking back. Jacob, would you want to address these questions first?
Yeah. So I kind of came in with the expectation that school was going to be tough. Undergrad in Laramie at the University of Wyoming, I don't know. I felt like I had more time to kind of, I don't know if slack off is the word, but like I could take my time with stuff, or I could go hang out with friends, and not to say that I can't now, but I felt like there was definitely a lot more free time, and there wasn't as like much of a risk that I was going to like fail a class, or like I didn't feel like I was going to have an issue like that. And so like when I came to SCO, like I had this big expectation that school was going to be just ridiculously difficult, and that I was going to have to be studying 20 hours a day. And to some point that is somewhat true. It is a lot more difficult. I definitely have to focus a lot more of my time towards studying. I can't just kind of cram the night before every exam and go with that. But it isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be when it comes to a lack of free time. I definitely have time at night to spend with my wife. I try to keep school kind of almost like an 8 to 5, where I go to school and on campus and study and dedicate everything like that. And then when I come home, I spend time with my wife. That kind of changes a lot depending on the week. If it's like a midterms week, then I definitely am spending more time studying. And so that kind of comes into play. But it's definitely, that's been probably the biggest difference, I would say, is just the busyness of it all. I mean, you go from taking like 15, 16 credit hours to taking 25, 26 your first couple of years there. When it came to my transition, I was lucky enough. I keep bringing up my wife, but I love her, and I just always talk about her. But I was lucky enough to have, her here to kind of help me. I feel like it's probably would have been tougher for me if I came here not knowing a single person. When I went to school, Raphael was actually the only person I knew because we interviewed at a school together. Other than that, I didn't know a single person. And so other than having my wife here was super nice. But yeah, so far I would say it exceeds in, I don't know, it matches level of difficulty that I would say. But it exceeds my expectations on how I feel like I'm learning. Like I feel like I'm getting a lot more out of things. I don't know. Hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Alexander, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think Jacob hit on a lot of it. The biggest differences for me, I feel, between like this and undergrad is, like, I'm sure a lot of you probably had this experience. In undergrad, you have to kind of fulfill like the general requirements, like you're taking like a history class or like things like that. I was a finance minor, so like obviously not doing any of that anymore. It's very like science, optometry, like all of that, like anatomy, physiology, optics, all of that, which I really enjoy. How you don't really have that feeling anymore of like, when am I going to use this? Like, you will use all of it probably. And like, you need to know every single thing. It's not like in college where you're like, oh, I'm just taking this class to like fill a requirement. So that kind of feeling goes away. And then, yeah, kind of like what Jacob said, I look back at college and I thought I was very busy in college, but I was not compared to now. You just have much more of a structured schedule. Whereas in college, I would have like 2 classes a day, and like that was my busy day. Whereas now you're like in class all morning or in lab in the morning and class in the afternoon, and it switches first and second year. So you have a lot more of like I said, a structured schedule. So it's kind of up to you on like how to fill the other hours, like when you want to get like your studying done on top of that. And also it's less assignments. It's more just like taking it upon yourself to set aside time to study. Like no one's going to tell you you should start studying for midterms now. Like you need to figure that out for yourself. Not that people do that in college, but like you're not really writing papers or doing group projects like that for the most part. It's very self-structured, I guess. And in terms of my transition into optometry school, I actually met my roommate at my interview day. So if you go in person for your interview, like meet the other applicants. So I knew her going in for sure. And then I came to the housing fair actually in the spring before we started. And I feel like that was a really nice way to come back to Memphis, because I had only been to Memphis for my interview the summer previously. So it was nice to just like get another look at the city, learn a little bit more, like get a sense of things. And also just to meet a lot more of my classmates. I feel like that made me feel much better coming to orientation. Like I knew some more friendly faces. And then school and like schedule wise, kind of like I said before, you just kind of figure out how you study best. I thought I'd be like a huge flashcard person, and I'm not. I never make them like early enough. So you kind of just figure out what works for you and when you need to start studying for midterms. And that just comes with time, and it just gets easier each like midterm week, I guess. And does the experience match exceed? Okay. I would say it definitely exceeds. Like Jacob said, I wouldn't say it's as hard as I was expecting. I feel like people hype it up like you've got to get up at 5 a.m. to start studying before school. Like I don't do that personally at all. You kind of just, it's just a volume of material. Like it's just so much coming at you. That's really like none of it's rocket science. You just have to like keep up with it because it's just a lot of information that you're fitting into 4 years. And I would say it's definitely exceeded like both in the classroom and outside of it. Like I love my friends so much. I was never like worried about making friends, but I feel like the friends I've made in optometry school I will have forever. And SCO has just again like exceeded my expectations. I feel like I'm getting a great education, great experience. And yeah, there's just so much more to optometry than you even realize, no matter how much you shadow. But yeah, I hope that answered everything.
Great, thank you. And moving on to the next set of questions. So this is a slide with lots of questions, and they all relate to your life as currently as an SCO student. So we have questions about your class lab clinical activities. What are you looking forward to? How much time do you spend studying? Are you involved in extracurriculars? How do you manage your free time? And how would you describe your experience living in Memphis? So we're going to have a couple of ambassadors respond to the first few, and then the others respond to the last few. And this is nearly to the last slide. So I want to invite our attendees in the audience. If you do have questions you want to have our panelists address, feel free to start popping them into the chat, and we'll make sure to leave some space at the end for them to respond to your questions. We will have Morgan and Alexandra respond to the first few questions. Let's give Alexandra a break. Morgan, do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay, so what do I enjoy the most about class and lab activities? I would say, especially second year, you're getting more into the more applied skills of optometry. So we're doing like gonio and fundoscopy. So it's really cool. Because I don't know, it's always fun to do refraction. And you learn that your first year, but I just feel like it's a lot more applied in lab this semester, and it's just really exciting. You're learning new skills every week. So it's just something new every single day. It does require a lot of practice, but it keeps you on your toes. I feel like lab is a lot of fun, and you're just learning a lot. And then I am looking forward to starting clinic third year. I'm excited to start seeing patients instead of being the patient. um, I'm excited to, just connect with more of our staff doctors as well and get to know them on a personal level in the clinic too. And obviously, like meeting patients and helping people as well. And then I guess, do you want me to answer the question about studying as well?
Yeah,
Rebecca?
yeah, the first three. So that would be great.
It kind of depends, kind of like they've been saying on the week. Midterm week, obviously, a lot more hours spent studying. And some people like to cram. I personally am not one of those people. I try to study a couple hours every night and then on the weekends, but I do like to give myself grace on like, oh, I have a lot of like a practical coming up and like something else going on that night. No studying, just gonna go to sleep and then maybe like give myself off on the weekends and like start studying Sunday night. It's very doable. It's just like they were saying, time management. You just gotta, figure out when you can sneak a couple hours in over lunch break or in between class and lab, whatever you can kind of figure out a time to study is the best advice that I could give you. But yeah.
Great. Alexandra?
Yeah, I feel like Morgan hit a lot of like the main points. I definitely agree with everything she said. I think, yeah, second year is definitely different from first year is all very exciting. Like everything's new. You're getting all your equipment. You feel like you're gonna be a doctor. And doing refraction is very exciting. But second year is very like you're learning so many skills in lab. We spend so much time practicing outside of class. That's like the big difference I feel between last year and this year is you spend a lot more time just like honing your skills because we're learning like so many of them. And that's been really exciting. It's just starting to feel very real that we're going to start seeing patients on our own next year, which is very exciting, a little scary, but it's very exciting. And this year we've been getting a lot of exposure in the clinic. Like one of our labs, we get to go do school screenings at elementary schools around Memphis. You get to shadow and scribe in clinic. And just getting and like seeing the optical and the finishing lab and just getting more exposure outside of the classroom and lab has been really exciting. And your classes too, like your lectures go hand in hand with that. They kind of are also becoming much more clinically relevant. You're not just doing anatomy and physiology anymore. So I've been really enjoying that this semester. What I'm most looking forward to, like Morgan said, seeing patients. I'm really excited for that. I think it'll be, yeah, just really exciting. And I'm also looking forward to fourth year when we go on our externships. I feel like that will be really interesting, getting to go to different places around the country and see how different practices or institutions work versus the eye center and just getting exposure in other settings. And then how much time I typically spend studying. Yeah, it really depends like on the day, on the week. If it's the week after midterm weeks, like I'm probably not doing much after class. That's not exactly due. But if it's like a couple weeks before midterms, I'll get home from school. I always like to take a break, like I'll go work out, make dinner. And I try to do like 2 hours or so before bed of work. And then on the weekends, I try to get stuff done before like nighttime if I'm going to go out to dinner with friends and stuff. So yeah, I definitely take breaks, but just try to like fit stuff in where you can, like Morgan said, I think is definitely the key, but I don't think I could put an exact number on it. But yeah.
Sure. Okay, great. And then we'll toss the last 3 questions to Raphael and Jacob. Raphael, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So for extracurricular activities, So my love language is service, like giving service to people. And the two that I'm most, I guess, involved with are SFOSH and RAM. So SFOSH is it's like a student volunteer program where you go and fundraise for the most of the year so that you can go on a trip internationally and provide free eye exams to people who can afford them. And I was actually able to go on one during our summer break between first and second year. Was able to go to Mexico, and I was there for about a week, and we did free eye exams there. There's the other one, RAM, which is local. It stands for Remote Area Medical, and we provide free eye exams to people who live in rural areas here in Tennessee. And for me, it's a way to, I guess, leapfrog the weight of doing an exam on a real person, because like I think it was Alexandra that said before, like, we're patients all first and second year. We're patients and doctors with each other, and we don't really get to do anything on a real patient yet. But going to these trips, you're able to practice the skills that you've learned, and it's exciting when you see something that you've been learning about in class and get to see it firsthand. But it's also the rewarding experience that you get from providing the service to these people. So I'm just glad that SCO has extracurricular activities and programs and clubs like those. I know there's others like intramural sports and other clubs that I'm not super involved with, but I think the other other ambassadors here are very much a part of those. I don't really know, but I guess Jacob could speak on that. But besides that, I manage my free time with just spending time with my family. I usually study about an hour or two daily, if at most, and then usually more on the weekends. But when I'm not doing that, I'm with my family. I got my wife and two kids here in Memphis. We usually go to the zoo. The zoo here it's pretty amazing. It's really big. We usually don't hit the whole thing in one day. It's one half one day, the other half the other, and we have a season pass, so we go there quite often. We also like to get food recommendations. There's a lot of restaurants here that are new and family or locally owned, so it's always exciting getting to try that out as well. And I guess my experience living in Memphis, it's been great. You hear a lot of things about Memphis before you come here, and I think one thing that I would have changed before I came here to Memphis was to just ignore that noise and experience it for yourself. I think a lot of the times people will hear the negative things about Memphis, and they're kind of apprehensive to do things. It kind of hinders your experience here initially, but once we figured out, like, okay, like it's an exciting city. It's growing, and there's lots of things happening here that's making the city better. We went out and were able to really enjoy the city. So I'm living in Cordova, which is a little bit of a ways from the school, maybe 20 minutes east, and it's beautiful out here. And I know I've been to Mud Island, where some of the other students live, and it's beautiful out there too. But for the most part, we've loved our experience here in Memphis, and I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll stay here after the end of schooling, but that is yet to be determined.
Awesome. And Jacob?
Yeah. So when it comes to extracurricular activities, I've been in a good amount. I'm obviously in ambassadors along with all the other ones here, which is a fun one where we get to do things like this and get to talk about how much we love SCO, as well as help with your interview days like we talked about, and hopefully make your day a little bit less stressful. Hopefully bring a smiling face to a somewhat important day in your life. I was in ocular disease. It's kind of one of the things that I really like about optometry is the different pathologies and diseases that affect the eye. And so I've been a part of that club. I have done intramural sports. I enjoy sports. And so it's kind of nice that's probably the club that is the most unlike other ones. Everything else has to do with optometry. This is literally just getting your frustrations out playing basketball or volleyball or dodgeball or something like that. And then I have done a few things with low vision because I also enjoy that. But there's so many more. Anything from there's a Spanish club, there's contact lens society, there's neuro stuff. I mean, anything optometry you can think of, there's probably a club for it. And so I mean, everyone's got their foot in something when you come to school here. When it comes to managing my free time, kind of like Raphael said, I've already kind of spoken to it. I kind of try and make my evenings a little bit more focused on family. I do definitely study when I'm home, especially like Alexander said as well, like coming up to the weeks before midterms. I do spend, around 2 hours a night kind of trying to grind on school to make sure I'm prepping for that stuff. But especially like the week after midterm, like I'm kind of just in relaxation mode a little bit more, kind of recharge. I and my wife, we actually live down in Mississippi, which is kind of crazy because you think, oh, your school's in Tennessee, but it's a 20-minute drive. We're just right on the border. And so we like to do things a little bit outside of the city because, I mean, I'm from a town of like, I actually live on a ranch in the middle of nowhere. Like the closest town to us is like 500 people. Like, and so big city life kind of isn't what I'm used to. And so we like to kind of travel out of town. We've gone down into Mississippi, down to Oxford, which is a really cool town. We've gone to Nashville and to Arkansas a few times, just kind of to see a part of the world that we've never been to before. I like to do things like that. We also, as well, are big foodies, trying to find new places to eat down here, experience all the Memphis barbecue that there is. There's so many different places like that. Spend time with our friends. We definitely have made a lot of friends while we've been down here, and so spending time with them is always a good time. When it comes to living in Memphis, like I said, my wife and I, we live down just a little south of town. When we were trying to figure out where we wanted to live, uh, I like I said, big city life is just not kind of my vibe. And so we live in this little town called Horn Lake, Mississippi, which is still, I don't know, 10 times bigger than the town I grew up in. But if we drive 10 minutes, we're in fields and farms and it's just like home again. But when we're in Memphis, like we'll go into Memphis to do things, to go shopping, hit up Costco, all the good stuff, or like go to Grizzlies games or other events. Like we've always enjoyed it. Memphis is like it does somewhat have that rap Raphael was talking about of things, but that's every big city if you think about it these days. Memphis is like a very very unique city in my opinion. Like there's a lot of cultures here that, especially coming from the middle of nowhere, I've never been around. And so it's fun to be able to kind of immerse myself in someone else's culture and be able to learn and I don't know, grow in that aspect. And so living in Memphis has really been a blessing in our lives, just to kind of get out there and learn and grow in a new way that we never have before. So
Awesome, thank you. All right, so I have one more question myself for the panelists, and I'm just gonna throw it out to the team here. Anybody can chime in. Is there anything that surprised you about optometry school? Anybody want to jump in?
I can go first.
Okay.
I'm surprised. I'm still surprised to this day, but I thought it'd be a little bit more cutthroat. I think a lot of times people think, oh, you're in a medical discipline, like it's going to be every man for themselves, trying to be the best. You want to be the number one in your class kind of vibe, and like that is like not in the slightest the case here. I mean, there is a little bit of things where class rank kind of plays a role when it comes to like your externship sites, but honestly, it's not. Like everyone here is on the same team here, just trying to become the best doctors that we can. And so you're not trying to tear others down, and rather I'd say you're trying to work with them to build everyone else up. And so that's kind of surprised me a lot, just the fact that you're working as a team more to help everyone, and you're not trying to hoard all this 4 years of information for yourself so you can be the best doctor out of the 130 kids in your class or whatever. And so that was something that I was pleasantly surprised by.
I can go next.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think for me, it was the amount of time that I have. And it's not like I have a lot of free time. I think kind of like how everybody else said, coming into optometry school, you think you're just going to get so much information, and you do, but it's going to be like super hard. It's going to take you like hours and hours to understand it. And really, like the way that things are taught at SCO, it's not difficult. It's just that it's a lot, and the studying that you do is just really so that you remember what you were taught, not that you're learning as much per se. But for me, it was just getting used to the idea that I have time to spend with my family. Um, prior to coming in, we were kind of mentally preparing ourselves that I wouldn't really be home and I'd be at school the whole time. And I mean, that is the case during midterm weeks. Like that is a hard week. But after that, I do have time to spend with my family. And that is something that I'm very grateful for, and was pleasantly surprised coming into optometry school. And I guess with that, I would say to also use that time wisely. Like, yeah, you do have time to have to go and spend with your friends and have fun, but also make sure you're using that time to study adequately and appropriately for your exams. Because I mean, there have been times where I was like, oh snap, I've got a midterm in like a week, and I gotta catch up on a lot of stuff. So I guess just using your time wisely. But yeah, you do have a lot of time while you're in school.
I was gonna kind of add on to like what Jacob was saying too, just about it's not as cutthroat as like I thought it was gonna be. And also with like our staff doctors, they for the most part, I feel like they always have like an open door policy. Like if you have something you're struggling with, whether that's in like the classroom or lab, um, you can always email them and see if you can go speak with them in their office. They really want you to succeed. They're not trying to weed you out of the program. Kind of like Jacob was saying, like it's kind of like we're all coming together to become the best doctors that we can. And I think they look at us, once we start school as like they're, teaching their future colleagues and trying to like help us become, if not as good as them, better at being an optometrist and being a great doctor. And so I really feel like it's just a great community of like people wanting the best for each other and our patients. So
I'll just finish off with, I guess, I feel like everyone kind of covered the school aspect of it, but I was just honestly really surprised at how much there is to do in Memphis. Like I said, I've only been here twice before like officially moving here. And I knew there was like a lot to do here with like the Grizzlies games and stuff. But I feel like honestly, like every month I'm finding like a new restaurant to try, or like I just went to the zoo recently for the first time with a bunch of my friends, and it was so fun. And just like exploring new parts of Memphis. It's such a big city. Like it is so just like large, like spread out, I guess, compared to up north. Everything is much more like compact. There's not as much real estate. But yeah, I've just been really surprised about how much I love Memphis and just how much there is truly to do here. So yeah, that would be my take for this one.
Great, thank you all. At this point, we are going to open it up in case any of our wonderful attendees in the audience have questions. So you can feel free to pop your questions into the chat or into the Q&A feature. On your Zoom screen, we'll probably have one ambassador answer each question that comes in to save time. So if you have a question for a specific ambassador, you can note that in the chat. So we have a few minutes. And I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but I'm just gonna pause and see if anybody does put anything in there. As you all may or may not be typing questions, let me just offer a couple of final thoughts. So first of all, I want to thank our ambassador team. You guys were awesome. I think the feedback you shared was really valuable. And so we really appreciate your time and all of the guidance that you've provided to not only the prospective students who have joined us here live, but we have lots of people watch the recording. So your testimony will live on and be helpful for a good time to come. So thank you to each of you truly for being here today. We will not be having a webinar in December because of the busyness of the holidays and exams, etc. We'll be back in January with a brand new year of panels and discussions about SCO and optometry schools. So that'll be something to look forward to, more information on in the weeks to come. In the meantime, check our website for recordings of all our past webinars. So yes, you can find those on our website. It'll direct you to the YouTube page where the recordings are officially hosted. If you aren't already in our prospective student database, I highly encourage you to join. If you don't get emails from us already, that's a good indication that you're not in our database. So all you have to do is go to explore.sco.edu, put your information in, and not only will that register you for our database so that you get emails about things like our webinars and advice about the application process, scholarships, et cetera. You'll also be, you'll have access to a personalized view book that has information about the admissions process that's relevant to the stage you are in the process. So explore.sco.edu is the link for doing that. I don't see any questions. Any raised hands in the audience? Any final comments from our panelists? I'll give it another second or two. All right, I guess that means we did a wonderful job thinking of questions that would be valuable to the audience. So once again, thank you to anybody who's listening now or listening to the recording in the future. If you ever have questions, you can get in touch with the admissions office by emailing admissions@sco.edu. And if you ever want to get in touch with one of our student ambassadors or with any of the students on campus, maybe you want to talk to somebody who's from your home state or who shares similar interests in other ways, you can email us again at admissions@sco.edu. We would be happy to get you in touch with some of our students. So thanks to all the attendees for being here. Thanks again to all of our panelists. We appreciate each and every one of you. Wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving and hope to see you all at a future webinar. All right, thank you all. Bye.